George, of all the films you could have started with, you chose this one. Why is that?
I don't know. I think it chose me in some respects. The script was sent to me, I read it, and something that I didn't completely intellectually understand affected me about the story. And then as I started working on the movie, it became clear to me that I was really intrigued by the aspect of the story that you can find yourself in your 40s and 50s, and that there is an act two. There's a second chance for you to redefine your life and to experience it in a new and astonishing way. And also I think I was really affected by the idea of how loss can transform you, and that how through the process of grieving you can rediscover who you are and shed things that need to be shed and grow, and that process is painful, but it's also transformational. So those two aspects, I think, ultimately are why I did the movie. But at the time I signed on, I was really intrigued because I'd never done anything that was this, for lack of better words, emotionally fragile and intimate. So I wanted to figure out what I would learn about myself as a human being and as an artist and a director by working on something like this.
Tell us about the casting process. How did you go about casting these two wonderful actors?
Well, they were cast before me, so you should ask them how they feel about having me as a director. So they were involved from the very beginning, and I was really thrilled about that because in addition to having the oft-spoke of charisma and chemistry, they're both wonderful actors, but also on film, despite their attractiveness and their charisma, they come across as human beings. And so I knew at the center of the story there had to be that you had to feel like you were watching Adrienne and Paul, not star and star, go through a journey. And so I was really thrilled about that. And then, be able to add in, a bunch of other wonderful actors, Scott Glenn, James Franco, Chris Maloney, Viola Davis. It was thrilling.
So how did you go about it? Did you do a lot of readings? I mean, how did you prepare?
Generally, anytime I get involved in a project, I try to absorb as much information, not just about the script, but about the world. So I read a lot about the Outer Banks. It has this very fascinating and complicated history. I read this one fact which sort of informed so much of my thought process about the movie, which was that because the Outer Banks is the place north of Florida where most hurricanes land, this one person described it, it's a place of extraordinary beauty and unbelievable devastation. And I found that dichotomy really fascinating, and that informed a lot of the visuals and a lot of the way I wanted to tell the story. I also listened to music from the area, and there was this one singer who had this great song, which is Before I Met You, and there was one line in there which said, just when I made plans for living alone, that was before I met you. And just the simplicity of that idea was very much so instrumental in my thought process about the movie as well.
What is it about Diane Lane and Richard Gere? What is that special thing about them?
I think as actors they have tremendous trust. I think they know each other very well. They like each other very well, so very much so that therefore when they're working together, it's only the work. It's only the work. They're not navigating these precarious sort of dynamics that can frequently inform, relationships on film, so that therefore they can just go for it. They can go for it in a unguarded way because the trust is there, and also they have this spark between them that is just there, and I think it's very compelling, and it invites the audience into the journey. It invites the audience, and there are certain kinds of, for lack of a better word, stars where their appeal is distancing. And I think with Richard and Diane, their appeal, it sucks you in, it draws you in to what these characters are going through, which is a wonderful quality in a movie like this, where you are watching these people sort of transform in a moment-to-moment, very subtle way.
In terms of a visual strategy, how did you set out?
Well, because I knew nothing about North Carolina. I knew nothing about the Outer Banks. I didn't know anything about that world at all. But so once I started going out there and finding these incredible landscapes, once I found that house, and it's perched on to the left of the house is like a nature preserve, so it's nothing but beach. And on the other side of it, hurricanes have destroyed two other houses. So if shot from certain angles, it looks like the house at the end of the world. And I loved that, how isolated it was. Then making an alteration in the character Jean and making her an artist who is Adrian's best friend. I was able to imbue, you were working with a production designer, this sense of sort of magic and something very special and timeless about this house. So that was very important, just painting with that landscape. And then crafting a world, so the Outer Banks is this world that is out of time. And then when you go back to Adrian and Paul's world, making those environments feel very locked off and closed off. Nature doesn't come in. Nature is something that exists as a potted plant in your house, something that you are in charge of. So that therefore, when you go to Rodanthe, all of a sudden, nature is in charge. The forces of wind, the forces of the ocean are informing you and stripping away your defenses. So it was just, so that just became sort of conceptually the palette that I was playing around with, and positioning these people so that at times when they're in that house, the intimacy and the camera is in their relationship, and then when they go outside, they're affected, and they're just one more life force that is moving upon this very, very large canvas of which they are just a part of.
When you're working with the actors, I mean, you're coming from stage. It's a very different animal. How do you pull back? How do you work?
It's ultimately, I don't know. For me, it's not that different. I mean, regardless of what the medium is, what you're doing is you're trying to tell a story, and what you're trying to locate is the immediacy and the intimacy of the story. Now, when you're dealing with the theater, there are dynamics that you have to deal with that are strictly external, which have to do with projection and filling up a space, so that therefore the 300 or the 1,200 people who are witnessing that event can be invited into the process. With film, you don't have to do that because the camera is moving in and defining the level of intimacy that an audience is experiencing. But it's fundamentally the way I talk to actors when I'm directing a play, or the way I talk to actors when I'm directing a film, doesn't alter. Nothing is different. You're still dealing with human beings who think they know more than they know in situations where things happen to them and everything they think they know is questioned. I mean, that's the fundamental dynamic of every single story, and then how they rise to the occasion, how they don't rise to the occasion, defines, you know, the nature of the story. So I don't find it that different. There are a series of externals that you have to adjust, but you know, the medium tells you what to do, and so you do it. It's just painting. It's just how you want to paint the story and how you want to engage the actors in the process of the moment-to-moment discovery that their characters are going through.
Which filmmakers are your idols?
What idols? What film? Oh, that's an interesting question. I don't know. Let me think about that. I love Ang Lee's work a lot. I love. Oh my God, you caught me. Let me think about this. Oh, I love Hal Ashby's movies. It's unbelievably so. I love Robert Altman. I just saw Nashville again the other day, and I went, my God, what a brilliant, brilliant movie. I mean, there's so many. There's tons and tons and tons, but those are some of them.
Which would you say was your inspiration when you're working on this one?
What film?
Mm-hmm. Or filmmaker?
I don't think I had any sort of key filmmaker that I was thinking about. I just try, anytime I do a project, I try to obey the story. I try to obey the intimacy of the story. And so I don't think about other films or other kinds of entertainment. I only go inside. Generally, I respond to music a lot. And somehow Dinah Washington, which ends up being used in the movie, was very important to me. And so I respond much more to sounds when I'm thinking about a movie.